What a night for the Rebel faithful down in the Coral Gables Regional. We'll talk about that and we'll explain to you why this year is looking a lot like 2013. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, and thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell for updates whenever a new video is uploaded, and of course, upvote the video itself. We'd appreciate it. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we will be doing post-game live, which should be fun for everyone. In the tease coming into this, I talked how it was starting to look a lot like 2013. And I say that because that was when the story was in February. Ole Miss's basketball team had just dropped a game against Mississippi State. And it was actually brought up in a press conference. Did Andy Kennedy expect to keep his job? Well, Ole Miss's basketball team that year went on to win 27 games and was a whisker away from the Sweet 16 in basketball. This year, the same type narrative happened, even though it might be a little bit careful. And I'm not going to call out outlets or anything about that because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But it is important to realize that the narrative has begun for a couple of months that Mike Bianco was on a lost cause. This was inevitable. We're going to make a change. We need to break it. And that has been the take that has been prevalent throughout the fan base. So imagine their surprise now when the baseline, which is a super regional, you really can't do anything if a team makes a super regional. Mike Bianco is there for the fourth consecutive year. I'll say that again. For the fourth consecutive year, he's there. That's actually an accomplishment for Ole Miss Baseball. I don't think we've ever done that. But in similar fashion to 2013, you have people talking about the head coach losing his job and that team going on a run. That 2013 basketball team won the won the SEC tournament. They were actually quite good during it. They came through, beat Wisconsin. They dropped a game against LaSalle at the very, very end. No, I'm sorry, I am a little bit under the weather, so if I cough, just understand that. So my whole thing is, when you look on a message board, now I'm not really going to make fun of message board because college message boards are the most toxic places on the planet. I mean, they basically thrive off of saying extreme things and being hyperbolic. That's just a college message board. But in any game thread on a college message board, 6 minutes to go in the first quarter, your team just gave up a touchdown. You might be down 7-0. The fire the coach chants come out. This game is on. And then this performative upsetness that people do. It's not going exactly like I want right now, so I need to be upset about it. And lo and behold, the final score of the game is you win like 40-14, and you don't hear anything about them. They just act like nothing ever happened, and they just completely ignore the fact that they threw this temper tantrum when the other team scored a touchdown. And that is a little bit what happened with Mike Bianco this season. Tennessee, you go back and watch my post-game pods from the Tennessee series if you want to see exactly what I think about that game. Tennessee broke Ole Miss. They destroyed Ole Miss's confidence so bad, it took them a month to recover from that series. That is absolutely what happened. Now, Kevin Graham coming back, that helped the team. They didn't have him for Tennessee. But that confidence got destroyed, and they had to get that back. And they got that back in Arkansas. They dropped 2 of 3 in the series, but it was a different looking 2 of 3. And then the next week, they were able to cut it back on. They swept Missouri, swept LSU. Lost 2 out of 3 against A&M, but A&M's a 5 national seed. But that's a series that could have gone another way very easily. They went to Hoover, dropped the opening game at Vanderbilt. Like the last week after the game, going into the last game series, the A&M series, everybody's like, Ole Miss needs to win one, and they're in. Ole Miss wins one. Okay. Well, then immediately it's like, well, this Vanderbilt game is unbelievably important. We have to win this. And it's like, well, that's not what you said last week. But this, and this happened. No. That's not what you said last week. You can't keep doing this empirical fight of everything is the most important thing in the world. I get that we are hyperbolic these days about things. I understand that. I understand that we are performatively passionate. You need to tell people that you hurt more so that you're a real fan. Again, that's not something that I need to do. That's not the way I follow sports. Apparently I am unique when it comes to that. But the correlation between 2013 and 2022, even though it's two different sports, is absolutely staggering. And my challenge to the fan base right now, my challenge will be, wait until it's over before you form an opinion. Because we have a situation where basically now we have 2 months of wasted effort. Every conversation that happened is absolutely worthless. And all it does is basically just pitch you against him in the future. Because we do live in a society where you need to defend that take. You need to die on that hill. You need to performatively do that. And if you believe that Mike Bianco deserved to be fired, the Super Regional isn't going to change your mind. Now, hopefully Keith Carter is smart enough not to make that move, to do that, because I don't think you could find a coach to come in after you fired somebody that went to 4 straight Super Regionals. But wait until the end to evaluate. Don't do this whole performatively mad thing. Don't do this whole thing where you're performatively mad to prove that you are a bigger fan than everybody else. It's not something to where sports is put on earth to, the bigger fan you are, the more you suffer. It doesn't work that way. So, like I said, my challenge to you, we saw what happened over the last 2 months. In the future, just don't do that. Try to be more rational. And I understand that there's going to be insular bubbles in Oxford that is going to try to control the narrative and going to try and sell subscriptions. And the best thing that sells subscriptions to them is a coaching search. Football is off the table. They can't do that. So what's the next best thing? At Ole Miss, it's baseball. They figure they can sell this. So they're real quick to almost try and speak it into existence. So just don't fall for it. Wait until the end. Evaluate after the season. If Mike Bianco would not have made the NCAA tournament, it's probably a different conversation. But the conversation before the SEC tournament was a different conversation than 3 weeks earlier. See, it all changes. It all fluctuates. And the context is the key to making the decision. Now, I've said many times on this show, and just so you know, I think that Mike Bianco deserves to leave here whenever he wants to leave here. I don't think he should be forced. I don't think baseball makes enough money, and it is self-sustaining with him at the helm, to where I think he deserves to leave on his own accord, because he built Ole Miss Baseball. He is Ole Miss Baseball. I know everybody's talking about get to Omaha and all of this. It's like that. Eventually that will happen. And everybody's like, well, he's been one time in 22 years. Yes. And the 22 years before that we went 0 times. The next 22 years, we might go 3. So just be patient and understand that in this world of NIL and everything going on, paying a buyout for a baseball coach is not in the best interest of the athletic department. So congratulations to them for making the Super Regional. In the next segment, we are going to talk a little bit about that game, a little bit about the Super Regional, and then in the third segment, we have Derek Vandygriff today, to where we're going to talk Ole Miss Baseball. So sorry if getting on my soapbox right now, But I did want to take the opportunity just to let you guys know, really. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting information and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Final, Major League Baseball, and of course all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Ole Miss right now is a 21.5 point favorite. Week 1 against the Troy Trojans, and of course, their futures are set up to where they're predicted to win 7.5 games. So you can look at that. That's betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We have an important favor to ask of you. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and what you don't like about Locked On Sports, Locked On Podcast, and go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now and complete it to have your chance to get one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards to take to your audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks for your help. All right. First segment, I got on my soapbox a little bit because I'm all about efficiency. That's just me. And whenever that much wasted effort is used over 2 months, it just drives me crazy. So, again, wait until it's in, then evaluate. Don't evaluate in the middle. Don't be the person that posts on the message board in the middle of the first quarter. That happens every year. All right, the Coral Gables Regional, though. MVP was Tim Elko, as honestly he should be. I mean, he had a fantastic regional, absolutely fantastic. And 3 home runs in the game for the first time in his career. Broke the single season home run record with his 3rd home run. I think he's at 22 at the moment. And there's a lot of frustration taken out on Arizona in that game. It was a game that was a home run contest to begin with. You had the home run by Elko, then you had a home run by Arizona, then you got the home run by Chatinier, and then you got a home run by Arizona. And it ended up being 5-5. Then Ole Miss scored to make it 6-5, and then Kemp Alderman hit a grand slam to make it 10-5. And at that point, the game was essentially over, but the Rebs have 12 more runs left in their system. 2 more home runs by Elko. They hit the ball really well. But in that game, Arizona was just out of pitching. We told you coming into the tournament, Ole Miss's path was great pitching performances by DeLucia and Elliott, and slug your way to a win in Game 3. That's exactly the formula that was used. And they got hot, and they probably feel pretty good right now. And their reward is a 3-game Super Regional at Pete Taylor Park down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And we're going to talk to Derek Vandygriff in a second about this. And I'm looking forward to what he has to say because, A, that regional was fun. Ole Miss was dominant in that regional. It was no doubt. Ole Miss faced the ace of Arizona, beat him. Faced the ace of Miami, beat him. And then when Arizona made it back to the game, they didn't have as much pitching, and they just beat the hell out of it. And that is the path. That is the way, to quote The Mandalorian. And Southern Miss, the same thing happens. You're not going to have super players like you have seen. You're not. I don't know how much I would put Southern Miss up in a 3-game series against any SEC team. Now, this isn't a slight towards Southern Miss because I do not talk trash at all. But at what place would Southern Miss be in the SEC? I get that they took 2 out of 3 to win the regional against LSU this weekend. but Ole Miss went down to Baton Rouge and took 3. I get all of that happening. But USM is also a team that can just beat you. They're just a good baseball team. You remember them from the regional last year? They're just a good baseball team. They hit the ball a ton. They pitch the heck out of it. They're just a good team. Scott Berry has done a fantastic job down in Hattiesburg. And I told you on this show that I think they're the best team in the state this year. And yeah, I mean, they earned that. That's the reason the Super Regional is being played there. That's the reason they got a host. They earned it. So, enjoy the regional. It starts Saturday. It's a Saturday, Sunday, Monday series. 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central every day. It's going to be televised each week, and it should be a fun game. But it's going to be a hostile environment because Southern Miss is going to want this. People always talk about it. It's like, well, like in football, the big argument was like, oh, don't you know they want to beat you? And I'm like, well, don't you know that's a compliment? You know, don't run from it. Enjoy it. Accept it. Southern Miss is no better than La Tech. Coastal, East Carolina, that group. Good teams, beatable. That's all I'm saying. So, P. Taylor Park is going to be about 6,000 per game in attendance. It's the smallest park of the Big Three in Mississippi. And they're going to be rowdy. It's going to be loud. And if you are planning to go to Pete Taylor Park as an Ole Miss fan, do not talk trash. You're asking for retaliation in that situation. They just dealt with a week of LSU fans. They're pretty fired up. They're pretty keyed up, and now they get Ole Miss. They think they have a chance to go to Omaha because they were a 1 seed and Ole Miss was a 3. So, expectations is going to be big. I'm looking forward to what Dylan DeLucia and Hunter Elliott can do. How they look, things like that. Because if they do what I think they can do, and what I think they will do, Ole Miss has a chance to get out of there in 2. But they have absolutely found a rotation solid on the first 2 pitchers. 2 games. You can afford to lose 1. It's a double elimination thing, just like it was in the regional. But 2 games is all you're asked of winning. Once you get to Omaha, you don't play every day. You play every other day. Which means those 2 starting pitchers, if you wanted to, you could pitch DeLucia, Elliott, and then DeLucia again. Because you have 4 days for DeLucia to come back. So, should be interesting. I'm looking forward to what happens this weekend. But 4 straight Super Regionals, that is nothing to sneeze at. And congratulations to the Rebel baseball team for essentially finding their way. Should be a lot of fun this weekend at Pete Taylor Park. I do like calling them the Turf Bags. If you want a nickname below, put it down below. But I call Southern Miss the Turf Bags because there's no dirt on their field. It's weird seeing that in central Mississippi. As much as everybody can't grow grass and just having a completely turf field. That's bizarre. So, don't you love chewy chocolatey brownie? What about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top? So good. What if I told you you can have all of the chewy chocolatey deliciousness plus 17 grams of protein? You're in luck because caramel brownie bars are available at built.com right now. And you got to act fast because they're a fan favorite. Forget about dessert. These are better than dessert. Plus, the macros are unreal. 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar. I would replace a regular brownie with Built's Caramel Brownie Bar in a heartbeat. The best part, caramel brownie bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Like for real chocolate. With Built, you don't have to sacrifice taste for healthiness. You can have both. So here's the offer. Go to build.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. That's all one word, LOCKED15. And get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at build.com. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, or including iTunes, I should say. Give us a 5-star review. You can say whatever you want to say. Just give a 5-star review. That'll help others find the audio version of the podcast when they search for it. That would help us out greatly. I am here with Derek Vandygriff. This is celebratory. We're going to keep acting like this is going to be the last time we might talk to you, and then it's just going to keep going. That's the way this is going to work, I think.
Yeah, and then at the end of it, I'll say, no, man, I'll talk to you next week, and then we'll be sitting here breaking down Omaha games, and like that. We're just going to keep rolling. These guys, they haven't given up all year. I'm so proud for the guys, Elko and Graham and Bench and those guys, that get to experience this run, and of course Mike Bianco. I've defended that man this entire season. I've taken a little heat for it, but that's okay. I've taken heat for it for the last few years defending him, and I'll keep defending him. He's a heck of a baseball coach, and what he's done to turn this team around, along with the players and their hard work and everything, it's just simply incredible what they've been able to do so far.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I also talked about in the earlier segments, early in the show, I talked about how Tennessee just absolutely broke this team confidence-wise. And it just, it took a month for them to get it back and start playing good baseball again. But now that they put it back together, they just completely dominated that Coral Gables regional.
Yeah, it's kind of like we talked about last week. It was kind of a thin path for us to move on. You had to win Friday, or in this case, you had to win Saturday, and then you had to turn around and win Sunday. But you had to take those first 2 games, right? And we had to have big pitching performances. And man, our pitching staff, bullpen, you can't say enough with the way they've turned this season around, way they've performed. DeLucia, Elliott, and then you get guys like Josh Mallett, who we've talked about so many times on this podcast. He's finally getting the recognition he deserves for the way he's pitched this year. He's had it all year. He just hasn't had as many big opportunities. He's starting to get those innings, get put into big situations. Mason Nichols was incredible, and of course Brandon Johnson. Ever since that Arkansas series has just been lights out, coming in to close out games for us. Got to give a lot of credit to Bianco though for figuring this thing out. We talked all year long about. For 22 years, the one constant with Mike Bianco, he's going to pitch. These teams are going to pitch. He's going to figure out the pitching because they always have. And, people were down on them because they didn't think that we had it this year as far as the pitching talent goes. And to their credit, they sit there and they mixed and matched and got DeLucia in there, Elliott in there, and then started working Josh Mallett's and Mason Nichols. Brandon Johnson's turned it around. They've done a really incredible job turning that staff around, and it kind of speaks volumes at Doherty. I think he's only thrown twice since like the Missouri series or something, and that was the big bullpen arm we had going into the year. We talked about him being that guy that comes in and gets you 2-3 innings, something like that in the game to kind of bridge the gap. So they found a lot of depth, and man, they've done one heck of a job with that pitching staff.
So is DeLucia draft eligible this year?
Yes, I believe he is. He come from the JUCO rank, so I think that automatically makes him draft eligible, even as a is he a sophomore? I think he's listed as a sophomore, but you get the weird COVID rules. The class classification is a little off these years right now.
Yeah, if Ole Miss can get him back, I think Josh Mallett has a chance to be the Sunday guy next year, and this pitching staff has a chance to be really good.
Oh, very, very good. It kind of reminds me of what we thought it might be when you had Hoagland, Nikhazy, and Diamond when Diamond was a freshman, right? You what Hoagland and Nikhazy had, and then you had this big-time recruit and Derek Diamond coming in and start on Sundays for you. And you thought, if he can get it done on Sundays, then this team could go a long way. And to their credit, in 2020, they were very, very good. Won, 16, 17 straight before the season got canceled, and looked like we were well on our way to our Omaha trip there. Now you never know how the season will play out. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. If you're able to get all 3 of those guys back, Mallett's, I think he's destined for a starting role next year. He's made such a big jump from one year to the next. I just couldn't be more happy with the way he's performed this year.
Yeah, he's pumping it up at like 95, 96 miles an hour this year.
Yeah.
I don't know where that velocity came from, but God bless him.
Yeah, and but that breaking ball's been the pitch for him. We kind of saw him a little bit earlier in the year, even though it wasn't against the stiffest competition or in high-stress situations. And I was talking to some buddies about it even back then, non-conference, whenever he would come in, and you would see him throw that slider, and you would think, my Lord, where did that bite come from? That's something he didn't have last year. He just went up there and he threw fastballs, and he threw them over the plate. I'll give him that. He threw a ton of strikes, but eventually people's going to catch up to that fastball. You got to have that secondary pitch to keep him off balance, and that's the key to his turnaround this year, and he's been incredible.
Yeah, everybody in this league can hit a fastball. You don't get to the SEC unless you can hit a fastball. Yeah,
just go ask Ben Joyce. You know, he throws at 105, and his ERA is still 3.5, 4, something like that. I mean, if you sit there and see it long enough, they're going to time it up.
Yeah, Tim Elko put one over the fence whenever Tennessee came to Oxford.
Yeah,
off of Joyce. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it just happens. Anyway, let's turn the page a little bit. This is going to be an exciting series. I do call the nickname I have for Southern Mississippi. It's not derogatory before anybody loses their mind. I call them the turf bags because there's no dirt on their field. They're the turf bags. But they play. They're gritty. They're tough. They're just a really good baseball team. And this is a situation to where if you told me Ole Miss won this series, I'm not surprised. If you told me Southern won this series, I'm not surprised. I expect some good baseball to happen this weekend.
Yeah, and it's going to be just an incredibly raucous environment down there in Hattiesburg. You know, I saw earlier today we were allotted 400 tickets through the university for Ole Miss fans, you know. And so start scouring the stuff up a little bit, kind of see what it takes for Ole Miss fans to get in there. And you're talking about $350 to $390 to get in Saturday and Sunday. So it's going to be a mainly Southern Miss crowd, as it should be, with them hosting and all, you know. But they're going to be wired for it, and kind of like you said all year too with Southern Miss. You know, you'd made comments several times about the best team in Mississippi, and to their credit, they played that way all year long. You know, State being down, we had that long stretch where we didn't really know where we were going, and Southern just kept plugging away. But you're right, they're a really gritty team. They're a really good team. They're a team that pitches really, really, really well. That's kind of flip-flop from what you saw last year with them. You know, when they came to the Oxford Regional, we were kind of worried about their bats. You know, they could hit it all over the place. And they've got this pitching staff with them now with Tanner Hall and Hunter Riggins and Hurston Waldrop. Their three starters are just incredible. And they got three guys in the bullpen that's thrown at least 31 innings each, and all of them have an ERA under 3. So it's going to be hard to sit there and run them out of arms like we kind of run into this past regional, you know, with Arizona on Monday. You know, they just kind of ran out of arms. That's not going to be the case this weekend. They got plenty of arms. They're going to keep running them out there, and you know, I think it's you kind of got to take the same mold from the first 2 games of this regional and apply it to this super regional. You know, you've got really good pitchers. You got to sit there. You got to grind out a bats, and you got to get the timely hits. When you get guys on base, get them in scoring position, you got to get them in. And it kind of falls on the pitchers too, you know, DeLucia, Elliott, those guys, and then everybody in the bullpen that followed them those first 2 games. They sat there and they grinded, and they kept us in those games over and over and over again, and gave our offense a chance. And luckily our offense came through. Tim Elko, you know, he got out twice all weekend, and he's just seeing the ball so well right now. So that's kind of the mold we got to take going into this weekend. You know, this is going to be crying out. It's not going to be very high scoring. If it is very high scoring, that doesn't bode well for the Rebels, I don't think.
No. Yeah, and the thing I tell my wife when I was watching the game, I was like, their Arizona pitcher was warming up in the regional final. And I was like, if he throws the ball straight, if it doesn't change points, it's just a fastball, Ole Miss is going to kill him. You have to have movement, and it has to dance around a little bit of the plate or just something to keep them off balance. And the same can be said about Southern. I expect you're going to see some junk pitchers from the Golden Eagles. Just because they're a Conference USA team, they're constructed a little bit differently. But yeah, as soon as those Arizona pitchers came in and it just didn't play it and it looked just like a straight fastball, I was like, they're going to kill this guy, and they did.
Yeah, and if that ball that Kemp Alderman hit would have hit anybody, it probably would have killed somebody. Good grief, that thing was hit a ton. And but kind of like you said though, that is kind of the key to pitching. You know, you got to change eye levels, move it up, down, in and out, have some break to it, have some ride. You know, change velocities, anything to keep the depth perception off a little bit, change the swing timing. which nobody at Arizona Monday night could do, and hopefully Southern Miss won't either. But from everything they've done this year, you know it's going to be a battle. I mean, those guys really are good. I mean, I like poking fun at them just like I like poking fun at the State, you know, just because they are our in-state rivals, if you do want to call Southern Miss one of those. But, you know, it's going to be a lot of fun. It really is. And people down at Pete Taylor Park, and God bless the Rebel fans to actually get into that place. Because I don't know how they're going to be treated down there. It's probably not going to be real great.
Yeah, the advice I have for people going to that game, don't trash talk anybody.
No.
Just enjoy the game, root for the Rebels, and then get out of there. Because if you go down there looking for trouble, you will absolutely find it.
You will absolutely find it. There's no doubt about it. And you know, it's not that it makes them a bad fan base because that's the way it is. You know, I mean, it'd be the same way in Oxford if somebody come up and, you know, trash talked us the entire game. You know, the competitive juices get flowing. This is a super, super big series. You know, both teams trying to get to Omaha. It's what you fight for all year long. So emotions are going to be high. The interview's going to be electric, and it's just going to be so much fun. I can't wait for Saturday to roll around. I kind of hate it starts on Saturdays. That means I got to wait around all day Friday and watch all these other games. So, and then I got to wait another 24 hours before I get to watch the Rebels. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I have no doubt that DeLucia and Elliott and all those guys are going to show up and do what they've done all year long. They've been in this position. Elliott, you know, he's one of those guys that has so much confidence. He's not rattled by any kind of moment, it doesn't seem like. I mean, when both the bases loaded that first inning against Miami, you know, you're sitting there thinking like, well, things could unfold in a hurry here. And to his credit, he even told us, you know, I didn't have to feel for my fastball, didn't have to feel for my slider. I'm just trying to get something over the plate at that point. And, you know, he trusts his stuff. He rode back, he threw it over the plate, and he just trusted that he was good enough to get it done. And he did, and just super happy for him that he was able to do that. And, I mean, he's just one of those fighters that you want on the mound in a big game.
Yeah, and think about how differently it could have been. If Tim Elko doesn't hit that gapper against Miami in that regional final, Miami brings in Walters, and all of a sudden, like probably the next inning, they bring him in, and it becomes so difficult at that point. Even though Arizona came back against him against Walters, I mean, it would have been hard. I mean, he was pumping like 96 on the black. I mean, he was impressive. Yeah.
He's absolutely incredible. That was one guy we didn't want to see. Luckily, Tim made sure that didn't happen. I was kind of surprised they didn't bring him in to throw to Tim right there in such a big spot. But they ended up going with another guy that worked out for us. And kind of like I was telling some buddies that regional played on with Arizona Miami, I said, man, I don't care who we play Monday, whether it be Arizona or Miami. I just want Miami to throw Walters against Arizona tonight. And if they win, so be it. But if he's got to pitch on 3 straight days against us, there's no way he can be that effective. Which that ended up not coming into play anyway. But yeah, he's absolutely incredible. The best closer in the country, and luckily we were able to avoid it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that Coral Gables regional was a lot of fun. It was fun to see Ole Miss as a 3 seed go down there and dominate, because we talked about this going into the tournament. Whoever got Ole Miss in their bracket, it was going to be the basically the group of death, because Ole Miss has 1 seed talent coming in as a 3. Arizona has 1 seed talent coming in as a 2. That's essentially 3 1 seeds out there, and Ole Miss just completely dominated that region.
Yeah. Like I said, we talked about it all year. I mean, you look up and down this lineup and that pitching staff. I mean, you see the talent. We've talked about it all year just how disappointing it was if they went through such a bad stretch there in SEC play, because you knew what was on the field. You know, it would have been different if you didn't have all that talent and wasn't playing well, but we knew we had it. We had seen it before, and they still weren't playing as well as they wanted to. But that's what also kept giving us hope as every weekend went by over and over again. I know me and you every weekend, maybe outside of that Arkansas series. After that Arkansas series, I think we were pretty down on as far as whether or not they'd even make the tournament or not. But every time before and after that, you know, we'd always talk to, you know, if you ever let them get hot, if you ever let this lineup get going, if you ever let this bullpen figure it out again, because that was a strength earlier in the year too. You know, the bullpen was really, really good for us before conference play, and like I said, that Tennessee game just seemed to throw the whole team off a little bit, and we basically just turned around and we reworked and rebuilt everything from there as far as the rotation, the bullpen, even the lineup from that standpoint. You know, you didn't have Kevin Graham, and so you're trying to piece things together and find guys to plug in, and make things work. And speaking of that, even Monday, I was glad to see the lineup when you saw Garrett Wood and Calvin Harris in there. Talking to a few buddies, I said, man, I love that they're mixing up. You've got to get something out of the bottom of this lineup right now. The top of it's hitting it so well. If you can get anything, they don't have to hit bombs and doubles and all that. Get the base, have quality at bats, and man, Garrett Wood, he played a really good third base defensively, and then he gives you 3 quality at bats. I think he had a single and 2 walks, including that 10-pitch walk that set up that big inning for us that really broke it open. So that was really good to see. And right now Mike's hitting all the right buttons, and I hate to be Southern Miss right now. I can tell you that much. And then after Southern Miss, I'd hate to be whoever we play in Omaha. Like I said last week on this podcast, if you let us get out of Coral Gables, we're going to Omaha. We're winning the Super Regional. And that's what the Rebels are going down to Hattiesburg to do.
Also, it's a fun thing that we're playing USM in the Super Regional because I think in 2014 when we went to Omaha, it was Mississippi State was a potential team coming out of that Louisiana bracket. So a Super Regional could have been Ole Miss and State, which they would that would have been in Oxford, and 25,000 people would have been in each game.
Oh, it would have been nuts.
But it is good to have Southern Miss in a Super Regional. This game is going to be amped up. I don't think anybody realizes how amped up it'll be because their fan base will be really amped up to beat us in particular.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to add, Omaha and everything else on top of it. That is going to be their added motivation. We'll see. But in baseball, it doesn't matter how much want to you have, how much motivation you have. If you don't hit the ball solid, it doesn't matter. And the hardest thing to do in sports is to hit a round ball with a round bat.
Exactly right, it is. That's going to be a task this weekend. Hopefully gain a little bit of confidence this past week in that Coral Gables Regional. Of course, Chattanooga and Elko are both swinging it real well right now. And Gonzo and Bench both had good series too. So it's going to be a heck of a task for us, but hopefully we can come through. Pitchers keep it in, keep us in the game, and we get the big hits when they matter, and go ahead and end this thing by Sunday night.
All right. Just a little programming note. If this series goes 3 games, we're going to push Derek back to where he does. He appears on Wednesday's show. If it goes 2 games, he'll be in his normal spot on Tuesday. But just be prepared for that. Derek, thank you very much. And everybody, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen today. Now make your second listen, Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Raphael Barlow, Richard Strayman, Sam Ferris, and Leif Tholen give an in-depth look at the biggest prospects, the latest player rankings, and, of course, big boards. Follow Locked On NBA Big Board every day on the Audacity app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Derek, huge thank you. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll talk next week.
All right, buddy. Take it easy, man. Howdy, toddy.
Howdy, toddy.